So, Sarah, what strengths do you think really helped your settings to get through the pandemic?
I think for me, having a strong, reliable management team that worked together to overcome some of the difficulties and the strengths and the weaknesses that we had to come through, and good communication was the most important for us. Communication with the families and the children when we were closed, and with staff on the return to opening the nurseries was the most important thing for us.
Absolutely, Sarah. And what then was the most challenging element of supporting children and families throughout the pandemic, and probably still as you recover from the pandemic too?
I think keeping those relationships going that you build with families when you see them on a regular basis, seeing them face to face, and when you have to do that at a distance, it does create, parents have concerns about coming back in and out the nursery with the safety. How are their children going to settle back in? That was a huge concern for a lot of both the staff and the families, that I feel we overcame quite well, but it was a work in progress. I think the children settling back in was one of the biggest difficulties or one of the challenges we faced, getting them back into routines, being able to follow, especially in the 3 to 5 room, routines and structure again, and interacting with their peers. And speech and language was also a big kind of challenge that we faced when returning from COVID as well.
Absolutely. They're all really challenging elements, aren't they?
Yeah.
So since then, and you've talked about some of those challenges, have you observed any differences in the way that children are using the spaces and using your environment, and even in the way that staff are interacting with children now that they've returned to nursery?
Yeah, I find that one of the positives that have came from it, if you can say a positive from COVID, is the amount of time we're actually spending outside in an outdoor space. That I would say we probably do more now than we ever did before the pandemic, and the children are really benefiting from that, and as are the staff, with their emotional well-being, their physical well-being, being outdoor in the fresh air, has been a huge positive for us. The spaces indoors, we found that the children took a while to adjust back into exploring their playroom and exploring their play space, developing their curiosity, something that we found was a challenge coming back, in how they move around the playroom and how they interact with their friends as well. And we found that, the staffing side of things, interacting with children, really needed a lot of work. We did have a bit of a staff changeover when we came back from the pandemic. Some staff didn't return. Some of the staff that we took on weren't as experienced or as knowledgeable because they hadn't had that experience on the playroom floor with placements. So again, that interaction with children's had to change, and how we observe the children and how we interact with them when there is challenges like speech and language present as well.
I'd love to hear about some of the positive work that you've been doing to support that healing process for staff, for children and for their families.
So for staff, we've created a new process, a more enhanced process when it comes to checking in with them for their wellbeing and their practice as a whole as practitioners. We've also encouraged them to take responsibility for staff meetings, that they now hold the monthly staff meeting, to give them more autonomy and say over their practice and their setting, to make them feel that they're part of the whole nursery. We also encourage them to use the Health and Wellbeing Hub and webinars and training that's available to help support them in that process of moving through COVID and coming out the other side. With families, I feel that we're getting back to doing things like stay and play. We've reintroduced baby breakfast, which has been really well supported by parents. We've also encouraged the families to come into the nursery now, but previously we would do virtual tours that they could share with the children when they were doing an enhanced transition as well. For the children, again, we've done the enhanced transitions from room to room. We've also given them opportunities to reflect on time what it was like during COVID, when we first came back after the pandemic, and we're continuing to support the children with the enhanced programme that we're doing for training and how to best support our children with their learning by training the staff to a high standard.
Is there anyone that you've been working really well with to support those gaps in children and families' experiences?
Yeah, we've been working with a well-known training provider in Glasgow that's been developing with us a bespoke training programme that will see us through the next year, that's tailor-made for what we need for our staff team, our children, who will come in and support us on the playroom floor with the children to observe how our rooms are set up and what we need to do to move the nursery forward, which has been a huge benefit to us and has been really, really well received by the staff so far.
So it's great to hear how you're working with people, Sarah, but where do you see there's still some gaps in other people that you could be working with to support experiences for children and families?
So I feel with respect to the care inspection in the past, with the new framework and the new way that the inspections are taking place, I think that having an understanding of what to expect on inspection days, particularly for those staff that have never been through the process before, who have maybe came fresh out of college, or we have new modern apprentices with us, being able to give them something from the care inspector or working with the care inspector together to give them that advice and information of what inspection day would look like would be a big bonus for our staff and allowing them to feel comfortable with the inspection process and what to expect during the day. So I think for us, I think the having other opportunities to work with others and families, I would definitely say having more support with when it comes to additional support needs, having peripatetic teachers back in, having speech and language therapists back in, working alongside educational psychologists. That sometimes we've never actually had to do that, and having them back in is a huge benefit. And working with other agencies to support the knowledge that our staff need and best to support the children moving forward is probably what I would say. There is definitely room for that.